Welcome to Death Row.
Like we always do about this time.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass!
You're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
There's a little snake in the grass.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
No fucking Jesus, people! I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody!
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back.
Who the fuck is that guy? Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
I would like to introduce...
Welcome to the MMAforMoney Show, episode 46. In this show, we will review UFC 251, the massive pay-per-view that it was, and preview UFC on ESPN 13, Cater vs. Ige, but that's not all. We will also be going over UFC on ESPN Plus, Figueiredo vs. Benavidez 2. I am Bob Voss, your favorite garbage man at MMA State of Mind. I am here with Mike Copenhaver. You can find him at Don't Cope Just Win on Twitter. Also follow the show at MMAforMoney Show. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Just happy to be here with you to talk about two epic UFCs that are coming in a row. After last week wasn't so bright, but that UFC card wasn't either, so I can't blame myself or you. Either way, I can't wait for these next two and to see what comes about.
Well, it's a Wednesday, so you know what that means. The MMAforMoney Show is here. You can find this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, the RSS feed. We are also on YouTube, both full-length shows as well as tiny tidbits to get your quick fix. So please subscribe to never miss a show. And obviously, as you are telling, if you're watching this on YouTube, we are finally starting to roll out our video, starting with our Gustavo Lopez interview last week. By all means, check that if you have not. You get to see our bright, shiny faces, as well as Gustavo and more guests coming down the pipeline. So like, comment, and share to spread the word. We're going to jump right into UFC 251, but you know what? We have so many cards to go over. We are going to do quick results, and we'll spend a little bit more time on the main card for all three cards. Otherwise, this is going to be a 2-hour podcast. No one wants to listen to that. You know what? We don't want to speak that long about it. So UFC 251 had Martin Day was minus 170 versus Davey Grant plus 150. Grant got a KO, left hook round 3. Carol Rosa got a unanimous decision over Vanessa Mello. Rulin Paiva, minus 175, got the unanimous decision over Zhumagalov. Marcin Tybura got the unanimous decision in a not exciting fight. Well, this kind of card was a little bit full of them. Leonardo Santos, got the unanimous decision over Bagatov. Makwan Amirkhani got the early first round anaconda choke over Dan Henry. Eliza Zaleski dos Santos, or EDS as we call him, lost a split decision to Muslim Salikov. Not sure I agree with that one. And then this is the first one we're actually going to go over. Volkan Ozdemir got himself brutally knocked out in the second round by, I was calling it Jiri, but I'm hearing more and more it's Yuri Prochazka, who was a plus 140 underdog. It was a close fight in the early goings, with Yuri showing a lot of disrespect for no time, but landing early and often and just put the lights out with a heavy overhand right to the side of Ozdemir's head, and he went down basically like a sack of potatoes. Mike, how'd you like this finish and just all around on this fight?
Oh man, this one was super exciting. This Yuri Prochazka, or however you say it, is really, really exciting to see him do what he did in that humidity out there, for being a bigger guy and the movement he was doing and the explosiveness. I'm really excited to see this guy, especially, not over in Fight Island, because it doesn't look very fun at all. It looks quite brutal. I think it's going to throw off a lot of our betting here in the future. Cardio endurance is just going to be so huge in this, and it's going to play a big factor. So it's going to definitely factor in on our bets coming in the future.
In the first fight of this, come to find out, massive pay-per-view, they're now estimating it at 1.3 million pay-per-view buys, which is just utterly astounding to me. Paige Van Zandt got herself first round armbarred by Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas was a huge favorite for a good reason. Van Zandt landed like a strike. Ribas got.
Hey, we said inside distance. That was what we looked at. Remember, it was plus 100.
Yeah, we were. If I would bet that one, I would have gone for it. I really would have. In hindsight, I think I remember looking at even round 1, but I'm like, no, that's being too overconfident. But I mean, that one would have paid out. We knew
she was going to get killed, but it was the negative 900 we couldn't do anything with. But we did talk. We called out that plus 100 in inside distance. That was about all the value was on Amanda Ribas, but her performance was amazing. The armbar was clean. Paige Van Zandt did actually a decent job for the little bit she survived. I'll give her that.
Well, and one hard thing, as we talk about on this show, we're not huge on props. We give them out very rarely. We actually have a pretty good rating going for them because we give them out so rarely. It's only when we're super confident. And I don't know, you never know with some of these fights. Like this is just the fight where Amanda Ribas is overly dominant but doesn't get the finish. Like the first time when Paige Van Zandt fought Rose, who we're going to talk about next, how she just kept surviving and surviving and surviving and surviving. It's like that could have happened here. It didn't, but for all those people that said Paige Van Zandt had value, the plus 600, that didn't quite hit.
Yeah, no, there was no value, and her face got bloodied up.
Next up was our first of 2 heartbreaking losses, and I say heartbreaking not necessarily because they were too overly close. Of the 2, this one was the closest. Rose Namajunas wins the split decision. I thought she won clearly, 29-28. I did give Andrade the third. The second was getting closer, but I still think Rose pulled it off. The judge that gave Andrade the first and third round, I find that a little disturbing and confusing. But this is one of the few times where I never thought I'd be saying this, that I wish this one was 5 rounds because I think Andrade would have won a 5-round fight. I never would have guessed that would have been her versus Rose would ever favor her in a 5-round fight, let alone the first time through. But I guess this one did. Mike, how'd you feel about this fight? And I think it was competitive, and Andrade came to fight. Like if for the underdog she definitely had the value because it was close and she had some big spots.
Yeah, I certainly agree to that. I mean, I'm really upset with her game plan in the sense of she came so hard in round 3. And so if she had that in round 3, then why didn't you come forward that much and throw bombs in round 1 and 2, you know? So it was a little disappointing in the sense, but I mean, remember, she's an underdog. She gave us a fight for, the money that we threw down on her. The line was off, in my opinion. I would do it again in the sense of I just thought it was off. So, I mean, it is what it is. You move on from that, and you respect to Rose, but she 5-round fight, she would have got bloodied up even more, and she would have quit for sure. But it was 3. You can't take anything from Rose, so it was a great performance.
Well, and you have to give her credit because obviously she was plus 180. That's what we bet her at. So she came for the finish, and she got close. She rocked Rose a few times, sealed up that eye pretty badly in the 3rd round, but landed some and had her rocked at least in the 1st round. At least Rose did a stutter step. So she went for your money. So this plus 180, I mean, this is about what she was with her first fight when she finished her. So it's like she came for the finish. And actually, just one more question, Mike, about this fight. Do you think that she was going so easy at the beginning because she didn't want to gas out since she's so notorious for gassing out?
Yeah, quite possibly, but it seems like momentum just runs downhill, and that once the fighter sees the other fighter kind of breaking, that's when they really start like piling it on, and it didn't happen until the 3rd round. So I don't know if it was she was saving it or if it just was the moment of Rose kind of quitting came in the 3rd round after she saw some blood on her face and a little bit of dripping. So it was what it was, man. I mean, I would have shit bricks, putting my money on Rose and being in that 3rd round.
Oh, no, absolutely. And like, if you would have told me that this was a 29-28 for Rose, I would have believed you. But now if you would have told me that Rose won the first 2 and Andrade won the 3rd, I'm not sure I would have believed you. So either way, she fought for our money. So I'll give her that. So that was -1 unit, but she went for it. Next up, Peter Yan was a big favorite, -225. He TKO'd with ground and pound Jose Aldo in the 5th round. Jose Aldo actually looked pretty good. He was landing some vicious body shots in the 3rd round, and I think clearly won that round. It was getting closer in the 2nd, really took in the 3rd. Was actually throwing leg kicks, which he hasn't done in a very, very long time, and it just seemed that once Yan started pouring it on in the early goings of the 4th, all the way through that round, the fight was basically over, and late stoppage with Aldo getting just pummeled over and over and over again as he was below Jan in that last round before they finally called it. Mike, thoughts on this fight? I think in hindsight we both picked Jan but said Aldo would be competitive, which he turned out being.
Yeah, man. I mean, Jose Aldo looked super impressive. His body looked really good. He looked really strong. In the first 2 rounds, I was like, wow. I mean, he implemented a game plan we haven't seen in a long time, which were those famous Aldo leg kicks. I've been asking and screaming for those kicks for the last like 5+ fights. I really don't understand why he doesn't kick more. Even versus Peter, he still didn't kick enough, but he definitely did a great job. But Peter did a great job implementing his game plan and kind of holding his gas tank till the round 3, 4, and 5, knowing it was a 5-round championship fight. I was super impressed with the fact that he could reserve that versus such a legend as Aldo. I mean, Aldo was swinging some haymakers, man, and he meant business in there. And so Peter Yan looked really good, and it just gets us a better odds on Aljamain Sterling.
Absolutely agree with that. I hope that is the next fight that gets made because we will both be on Aljo, and that will be a very closely aligned fight, judging by how much people are on the Jan hype train at the moment. Now, in the co-main event, this was the second of the 3 title fights. Alexander Volkanovski. We're actually on video, so I could do this. For those who listen to that, I actually did parentheses there. Volkanovski got the decision there, but I think in this case, Holloway was absolutely robbed. I thought it was a clear loss to him in their first fight, close, but Volkanovski winning. This one, I thought it was a clear 3-2 for Max Holloway. He looked fantastic. He was really targeting that body. He took away the early leg kicks from Volkanovski. Looked fantastic in the early portion of that fight. I'm a little bit shocked, and I feel terrible because it was an immediate rematch. We knew that Max would be able to catch up, I guess, as it were. He'd be able to make adjustments, but this is so fast after the initial fight that he wasn't able to make nearly the adjustments, let alone how his training situation was. I don't believe for a minute that he did all his training via Zoom. I just know that the penalties in Hawaii for breaking the rules on social distancing and being with large groups of people is pretty severe. I believe it's a $1,200 fine for if they find you with too big of a group of people, and he's not going to pay that. So thus the Zoom rumors. But he looked phenomenal here, and I just feel so bad because you lost twice to the current champ, even though so many people, like if you go back, I don't always do this, but we've brought it up before in past goings of this show. The MMA Decisions website is a great thing to check out. Obviously, Volkanovski won via split decision, but if you go down, the utter vast majority of media scorecards had it for Holloway. Like 3/4 of the scorecards had it for Max Holloway at the 48-47. That's the way they went. I don't know. It's rough. There's no way they're going to do another immediate rematch because he's lost the first 2, so he's going to have to win something. But man, I don't know. You feel bad for Max because the first one was close, and I thought he won this one, and now he's kind of in no man's land. Mike, how did you score this fight? How did you see just the fight in general? And I guess where you see both these guys going after this?
Man, I absolutely hate MMA judging. Some of these guys are absolute garbage. I mean, absolutely. We've been a Max fan for a long time. I try to have an open mind all the time when I throw down a bet, and if I lose one, I'm like, man, you were super biased, and you need to open up your mind to that fighter being better than you thought they were. And I did that with Volkanovski. I bet Max the first time on the show. I died with my boy because Volkanovski did a great job in that first fight. I clearly thought he won it, and I was biased watching as a Max fan and a bettor. And so this time I said that Volkanovski was going to win, and I didn't like the fight for Max, and I just didn't like it in general. And so I was pissed off that I didn't back my boy more for the rematch because I really believed that Volkanovski, I thought he was that good. So Max comes in here and shows us a great performance, literally amazing. I had him up the first 3 rounds pretty much, I think it was. And then Volkanovski did look really, really good in the championship rounds. And so I told my friends at the party that day that, you watch this shit, dude. The judges, you never trust these judges. And this is a championship fight, and you got to come and you got to beat the champion at times. And so if you're not winning the 5th round in a close fight, they're going to give it to the other guy a lot of the times. And so I was super upset for Max in the sense of I thought he won that fight clearly. Everyone else did too, but certainly not one of those crooked judges. And I don't know why he didn't see it the way we did. I would have sure loved to see Max get his belt back, and then we could have saw a trilogy, and it would have been an amazing thing down the way. It's still going to be amazing. Hopefully they fight again, but the chances are slimmer and slimmer, you know.
I don't know if I said this after the first fight. More and more, I am very much getting opposed to immediate rematches when it comes to title fights. I normally don't think there's enough time. Like I remember saying when they made this immediate rematch, I wasn't a fan of it, mainly for Max. I didn't think he had enough time to shorten up the gaps, but he was, which is the crazy part. But I'm officially, and I probably will say it here on out, unless it's like an utter fluke, something crazy happened, like an eye poke DQ or whatever. If it's an immediate rematch, I'm pretty much from here on out just going to be against it. I don't think it ever goes well. I think it takes away from good buildup. And I know the worry is that the person's going to fight someone else next and they might lose again and then you won't get the rematch. But how great would it have been if Volkanovski beats Max the first time and then Max fights someone we'll talk about later tonight, like Dan Ige, and gets a win, and then comes back with a win, with that confidence back, a time to like practice out and shorten up any shortcomings he may or may not have had in that first fight. I think it would make for a better fight. I don't know. I feel bad for Max because like I don't know why I always feel the need to justify it, but we have. Like, if you're going to design a fighter that is this type of style that we like, the volume striker that can fight from both stances and really digs at the body and has good head movement, like basically the type of fighter that we love, other than maybe a little bit more knockout power. Yeah, great takedown. Oh, amazing takedown. When he gets into the whizzer, he just like, it's just a dead stop. It's so impressive. I don't know, man. It's rough. I walk away from this worried for Max because I mean I know he's only 28, but he's got a lot of miles on him. And when he went up to 155 against Poirier, it did not go well. And I know Poirier is one of the top guys at 155, but I wish Max could stay at 45, and I wish he sold his belt right now because I think he should. From one sad fight to another, this was just a long fight card, man. It was enough decisions, and when you have 3 title fights that almost all go to decision, obviously the Jan versus all didn't quite get there, but the main event, which was the main buzz for this pay-per-view, I don't care what anyone says, it was 100% Jorge Masvidal, but it was 100% boring. Usman, clear decision. You're not going to hear any argument from me. The only argument I'll give is anyone says that he won clear across the board. I thought Masvidal won that first round. I think with more of a training camp, like a normal training camp, he could have won more rounds. Would he have won? I don't know. But I just think he would have had more. It just seemed to me anytime he was put in the clinch or something like that, he was playing so much defense and trying not to exude too much energy so he would have enough to last the whole fight. That if he had more energy in the early goings, he'd be able to pour it on more and possibly hurt Usman, or maybe later in the fight. I don't know. But obviously we had a bet on Masvidal, mainly because if he was going to win a title, it was going to be coming off the trajectory he was on, with the amount of confidence, the amount of everything. It's like there was such a build to it. Like this is when it was going to happen, and it didn't. But I mean, Masvidal's not going anywhere, especially with how big that pay-per-view was and being on the cover of the video game and all that stuff. But I don't know, just a long, boring, sad fight. So kudos to Usman. There's very few guys at welterweight that I would pick to beat him. I just thought, given the night and where Masvidal was at mentally, that there was a chance, especially for those ridiculous. We got him at plus 245, which I think is ridiculous. I think the fight is much closer than that. So value-wise, I still think that was the right side for that extreme amount. I thought Usman probably should have been well under minus 200 favorite, but I will. So, Mike, thoughts on this main event? I know if you can't tell by my tone, it's very sad and melancholy, and I'll cheer myself up for the remainder of the cards we're going to go over, but I'm going to pass it to Mike while I console myself.
Yeah, man. I mean, this fight I was so excited for, and I guess I shouldn't have been so excited for it. I'm coming off 6 days, but Usman, obviously he's good. He's a champion, but he's boring as fuck. I don't care what anybody says. You can at me. Yeah, he's a champion. Yeah, he's done it X amount of times. Cool, dude. You're not entertaining. You're not a fighter. We're fighting. I know that you're trying to like pad your record and keep it good and win, and that's the goal. Of course, you get paid more. But dude, you're not gonna draw pay-per-views. You're not responsible for all the pay-per-views that were drawn. George Masvidal is the reason why we hit over 1 million buys supposedly, and you can argue until I'm blue in the face or you're blue in the face, but that's the facts, Even
Usman better cut Masvidal a check, because since he is the defending champion, he's for sure the one to get pay-per-view points. Obviously, I think Masvidal got some too, but this is going to be his biggest payday by far. He should give him a little bit off the top.
It definitely should, and so it is what it is, man. I don't want to sound like I'm just bitter of the loss. It wasn't just a loss, It just is the fact of I like watching good fights. Everyone at my house at the party that night, we weren't excited after that fight. Not like we were excited after the Diaz upset versus Conor McGregor #1. Rousey getting knocked out by Holm, same thing. There's moments when you're just with people and you're celebrating and everything's cool and like, wow, that knockout was awesome. Usman stomping Masvidal's toes as the most damaging thing in that fight, it was not awesome. So you can blow me.
Sorry, it always reminds me when you bring up the Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey fight that I was so excited going in that fight. I had so much on Ronda on that fight, like inside the distance and stuff. But then I was so upset when the fight ended, like freaking out. But then I remembered that the price on under 1.5 was cheaper, so I went with that, and the fight ended in under 1.5. So I made that by the skin of my teeth and then variable odds. But so if you didn't get that from us speaking earlier, reported this did 1.3 million buys, which is even bigger than Conor McGregor's last fight. Honestly, probably the biggest fight they could make right now is Masvidal versus Conor McGregor. I don't know if they'll do it. It makes sense. They could both fight at 55, 70, pretty much wherever. And that's just a straight cash grab. Like pretty much after that, Masvidal can sail off. And that could be him defending the BMF title if you really want to attach a title to it, to have it be a main event and all that jazz. But moving on, we are just going to do quick picks for... this is UFC on ESPN 13, Kattar versus Ige for, tonight. We have briefly gone over some of them before. We're going to go more in depth on the main card. We have given you a bet last week for this one since this is coming out so late, but we do have a second one. We'll try to pump that out on Twitter so you guys can all get that. We're going to do quick picks for everything leading into the main card, break down more of the main card, and then we will do the same for this Saturday's fight. Although we are going to skip one, and that's just because the first fight is listed as a heavyweight fight from Jorge Gonzalez versus Kenneth Berg, but I am like 90% sure that I saw today that fight is canceled because Kenneth Berg didn't even weigh in. So those odds were plus 135 for Gonzalez, minus 155 for Berg. I doubt they're going to get replacements. A low-level heavyweight fight, so we're going to move on. Aaron Phillips plus 520 versus Jack Shore minus 740. This seems like an utterly simple setup match for me. Jack Shore opened much lower, but has just been getting steamed. He seems like a guy the UFC likes and has brought in, and basically just has this fight on a platter. So usually when it looks like that, that's what it is. So I'm picking Jack Shore. Mike, Shore versus Phillips.
Oh, Jack Shore is going to absolutely demolish this guy. I think he's most likely going to take him down and smash him and submit him. But he can do anything he wants to him. That's why the line has been steamed. I haven't checked the inside the distance or the submission props on that. They probably don't even have them yet because they've been slacking on everything. But Jack Shore is going to just absolutely dismantle this guy, and it's just a terrible, terrible match.
Sorry, I'm trying to get you guys the... There we go. Sorry, wasn't opening up for some reason. But the Jack Shore wins inside the distance is minus 235. So quite a bit lower than it was, but not crazy. Submission is minus 140, and TKO is plus 300. He's likely going to get the sub, though. That's why it is what it is. But minus 145 is much better, but that's a very, very specific prop for something like this. Next up, Liana Jojua. Apologize for that brutal pronunciation. She's currently plus 170, but I'm going to list this whole fight and then I'm going to make a comment on the odds here before I make a pick. She's plus 170 versus Diana Belbita, who's minus 200. This is a low-level WMMA fight, and when we first went over this fight briefly, or at least mentioned it on last week's breakdown, it was a pickup. It was minus 110 to minus 110. So in that scenario, typically what happens is there's some action on one side, and then people see the action on one side, so then they just start throwing it in parlays. So I have no money on this fight whatsoever, but if I had to go, I would go with the dog. So I guess I would go with Liana Jojua at the plus 170, but no further insight from me on that one. Mike, got anything from this first, the WMA fight of the night?
I don't have like anything crazy, but in the sense of toughness, Belbita is just way tougher than Jojua. Jojua let Sarah Marias kind of do whatever she wanted with her. I thought that was crazy because Sarah Marias, standing is not anything special. So if Sarah Marias is teeing off on you or punching your face and happy about it when she likes to be on the ground, it's she's not that good. So I think Belbita could actually win a 3-round decision. I think that's the best bet for her.
Next up, Jared Gordon is a minus 145 underdog versus Chris Fishgold plus 120. Many people have heard of this fight because Jared Gordon's entire corner has tested positive for COVID and will not be there. But you got some great people like the Irish Dragon himself, who is doing commentary, is hopping in, and he's going to be his cornerman for this fight. Gordon should win regardless. Fishgold likes to get taken down and subbed, and Gordon should be able to do that with his wrestling, provided that he doesn't just decide to stand and bang. So I'm going to go with Gordon regardless of the massive change in his corner. Mike, anything specific for Gordon versus Fishgold?
If Jordan can get him down on the ground, I think that he'll have a great chance at using his jiu-jitsu game. But I don't trust his striking in that sense, so he can seriously get caught. So I don't like this fight at all. But I would pick Gordon.
My apologies for first reading his name. It's Jared Gordon. I don't know why I went with Jordan. I'm combining the two names of Gordon and Jared into one singular name, which honestly makes it shorter and easier to go.
The only Gordon that matters is Jeff Gordon, number 24 NASCAR. That's the only fucking Gordon that matters.
Since you trained jiu-jitsu, I thought you were gonna go Gordon Ryan. I wasn't sure.
Well, we're talking about last name Gordon, I guess.
Okay, gotcha.
So, Gordon Ryan is amazing.
Next up, bear with me on these pronunciations. Modestus Bukauskas. There we go. He is minus 170 favorite, but that's not it. He opened at a minus 265. So it has just... Someone has some serious money on the underdog here. The underdog being Andreas Michailidis, plus 150. That is a gigantic swing. I don't know of the storyline going into this fight, but the huge swing has me start looking more towards the underdog. But since there's so much action on the underdog, it almost makes me lean the favorite. So I don't know. I have recollections of watching Bukauskas fight, so that's the way I'm going to go. Don't trust this for a pick with any kind of money involved, but fair warning, I do not recall too much of these guys' fights, but a lot of fights going on. Just a quick pick. So, Mike, what do you have for Bukauskas versus Michailidis?
Just a quick pick. I'll go with Modestus.
Next up, Ricardo Ramos. I like Ricardo Ramos. Minus 160 versus Laren Murphy. I think I typed this out wrong. Let me quick double check.
It almost looks like Lauren Murphy.
I know, and that's what's messing with me because obviously I know Lerone.
Yeah,
Laren. Lerone.
Let's just go with this last
Murphy.
name.
Murphy is a plus 140 underdog. I actually really like Ricardo Ramos here. 160 is kind of about maybe a little bit outside the range I would normally like to pick for him, so I have him as a pick there. Not any certain amount of money towards it, but I like Ramos here. Mike?
Yeah, I think that Ramos is going to roll here and teach. He's got just a little bit too much experience.
John Phillips is a huge plus 300 underdog versus Kazmat Chimaev, who is minus 360. I think Chimaev is actually going to get a finish here and get a sub. John Phillips likes to get subbed. Chimaev's good at subbing. I'll go with that, but huge favorite. So, unless you want a little top round parlay piece, I got nothing going on there. Mike? Kamaev versus Phillips.
I think Kamaev's going to be able to take him down and submit him pretty easily.
Now we're going to go a little bit more in depth for this main card, at least most of them. We actually have 2 bets on this main card. We already gave out one. We're going to have a second. But first off, we're going to talk about Abdul Razak Al Hassan, minus 330, versus Monir Lazaz, plus 270. Al Hassan is fresh off, how do I put this delicately, legal issues? But he's fighting again, and he should roll here. I mean, I would tell you what inside the distance is, but I could only imagine it's just as steamed, probably about equivalent to what he is straight, because I would have, it's minus 270 to win inside the distance. TKO is minus 215. So, yeah, he's going to bulldoze this guy, in my opinion, even outside of the odds. I think he's got a lot of pent-up rage and aggression that he's going to unleash in and around Lazez's face. So I thought throw him in there. Too steep for any type of parlay piece, and way too steep for straight, especially for as low level of a fight as this is in general. Mike, anything more specific or more in-depth for Al Hassan versus Lazez?
I mean, I feel really bad for Lazez. I mean, he's a decent prospect. I mean, he doesn't have that many fights, and nor has he fought much competition. And you're just going to get thrown in here with Al Hassan, who's got amazing hips. I mean, his striking's really good, and his jiu-jitsu is well-rounded. I mean, it literally couldn't be any worse. I just think that Al Hassan should do anything he wants to the newcomer, even though that there should be a little reach at disadvantage.
Next up, Molly McCann. Yes, that is still her nickname. This is another one of those fights that was a pick'em when we first went over this last week, but now some steam has come in on the Meatball. She's minus 150 versus Talia Santos, plus 130. I thought this was going to be a close decision, leaning towards McCann, but I don't know. I can't really trust her at pretty much any favorable odds, because I just don't think she's that good of a fighter, but she should win here. So I guess I'll go McCann, but wouldn't touch this with any semblance of currency.
Yeah, I mean, I used to make fun of Meatball, but I like her, man. She comes in, she fights, she gets pissed off, she gives everything she has, and so that's the type of heart I like in a fighter. So even if someone might have a little bit more technical experience, if they don't have that same heart as she does, she's gonna push past them. So I'm gonna go with Molly the Meatball. I think she's gonna continue to roll as the Meatball does.
Sorry, my dad humor very much enjoyed that one.
Sorry.
I like that. Next up is our first bet. A little mixture of words there, but either the next fight has our first bet of the night. Jimmy Rivera, minus 140 versus Cody Stamann, plus 120. Cody Stamann had fought as recently as a month ago within the quarantine, beating Mr. Boom Boom Kelleher after, I think, less than a week after his brother passed away, and he was able to get through that and pull this off. I just really see Stamann as on the upswing, Rivera on the downside, and I just have a higher ceiling for Stamann. I think the wrestling will be there. I give Stamann the wrestling edge. His striking is coming along. Rivera probably has the more technical striking, but also Rivera's chin has shown to be a little bit shaky, so I like Stamann a lot here at the plus 120. We do have a bet on that at the plus 121 unit there. Mike, further breakdown of how much we love Cody Stamann.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a great fight. I mean, these are two wrestlers that have now decent striking or great striking. Rivera, he's a big right hand. That's literally pretty much all he has. I think that Cody has better wrestling all around, and that should really put some fear into Rivera and make him lose a lot of his power. I only see the fluke chance of Rivera catching Cody with something like a left hook or something random. But I think that Cody Stamann's world-class wrestling is far superior than Rivera, and that all day with him training with Joe Benavidez and our boy Gustavo Lopez, who was just on the show talking about how hard they're training together. I love hearing the stories of them. We're definitely going to back our boy Cody Stamann now. It's going to be an easy bet.
I agree there. I'm just realizing, yes, we're on video for the first time. So for anyone watching on video that just witnessed me put some pills in my mouth.
Yeah. Hey, popping pills.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a medicine?
No, it's not. It's just, it's ZMA to help me sleep because I don't get a lot of it. So I usually take it. I'm realizing this. I usually take it about mid-show because it takes like a half hour to an hour to kick in. So I do it now. And then I sleep nice and deep. And get my quality like 5.5, 6 hours of sleep, and then I'm ready to go. So
I made sure
that's what that was.
I made sure to put my drugs to the side over here so that no one could see them. Mine
are just nondescript little capsule white pills. So either way, I could show you the bottle if I need to. But if you're not used to that on the show, realizing that we're on video now, that's apparently now on the internet forever. So
the bong out the picture, bro.
Moving on now, the co-main event is Tim Elliott. He used to be a longtime favorite of mine. That's kind of faded away a little bit. He is minus 130 versus Ryan Benoit plus 110. We already broke down this fight and told you all the reasons we like Tim Elliott, so we're not going to waste your time re-going over it. If you really want to re-listen to our breakdown, go on last week's show and listen to it. We wanted to give you guys a bet before the early goings, and actually the lines jumped around a little bit, but it's back to where it was, plus 110. So we have one unit on Ryan Benoit at plus 110. I'm not going to do any more on this fight because we already talked about it. Mike, do you have anything new to throw in? Actually, the only little bit of news I have to throw into this fight is I did hear Tim Elliott is back at his old camp with James Krause. So that's good. He's out of Vegas, but although, yeah, so that could be good for him, I guess. But we're on the other side, so I hope it's not.
It's not going to help you stop quitting, and he loves to quit. So you saw how quick he tapped versus Brandon Royval, who's not even close to Benoit's ground game level, and it's just going to be an easy fight once he breaks Elliott's will.
Absolutely. The main event, Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. We don't like Dan Ige, but that's not why we're going to break down the fight this way. I'm going to preface that. I'm going to give a very, very short breakdown because I have a very simple breakdown to this fight before I throw it to Mike. Calvin Kattar has superior boxing. He throws better combinations. He pours on more volume later and comes on strong as Dan Ige will fade. Could get a late finish, but he is just going to start laying combinations in and around Dan Ige's face. So I think he's going to get the decision here. He's minus 305 versus Dan Ige plus 275. No bet whatsoever. This is a huge favorite, but I think he wins a comfortable decision here, if not a late TKO. Mike, thoughts on the main event for this fight card?
Yeah, man. As much stuff as I've said about Dan Ige, he's proved me wrong many, many times. He's getting better every time. But this Calvin Kattar is just, to me, just another level, a size difference that is just going to be too much for him. Calvin Kattar's boxing is super, super crisp. He throws straight punches right down the pipe. He moves really good defensively, and his ground game is really good, especially his get-up game. I don't see Ige being able to pull this one out, and so I'd go Kattar on this one.
Okay, so we're still not done. We have a whole nother fight card. I know, exhausting, right? This one should go even faster than the last one. We're going to do quick picks again for the prelims, jump into the main event, and probably only have 3 fights on the main event that we're going to go deep into, because this fight island is basically get every single non-US based fighter a fight. So there's a lot in there, and some short notice ones. So this is UFC on ESPN Plus, so this is going to be on the app there. Figueiredo versus Benavidez, 2 for the title, since Figueiredo missed weight last time for flyweight. The first fight is Sergey Spivak, minus 145 versus Carlos Felipe, plus 125. I'm going to go Spivak. I think he's going to get a finish, likely TKO. Mike, Spivak, Felipe.
I'll go Spivak here, just a little too much experience for the undefeated newcomer.
Next up, Davi Ramos, plus 175 versus Arman Soryukin, minus 210. In the past, I've been a big Davi Ramos fan, but I think this is just going to be too much for him. I do like Soryukin, and I actually think Soryukin has a good chance of getting a finish here. Mike, Soryukin, Ramos.
Yeah, I mean, Ramos is good, but he's just always been outsized in whatever weight class he's been in, and so that I think that Arman can get win this fight.
I'm not sure if this next fight is happening because it has been on the board since last week or before, but there's still no odds for it. Malcolm Gordon versus Amir Albazi. I don't know either of these fighters too well, so I'm actually even not going to pick. I'm not even sure if this fight is happening. So, Mike, if you don't have a pick on this one, we can go ahead and move on.
If I had to pick, I'd go with Albazi.
Next up, Brett Johns, plus 175 versus Montel Jackson, minus 210. There's been a lot of hype on Montel Jackson. Brett Johns used to have that level of hype. I think Montel Jackson is bigger and stronger. I think Johns does have some sleek submission possibility here, but all in all, I'm going to go with the favorite Jackson.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Jackson. I think he's just a little bit too much, a little too athletic for Johns, but it's going to be a great fight.
Next up, Joel Alvarez, plus 290 versus Joe Duffy, minus 250. Yes, that Joe Duffy. He is fighting again. He's a big favorite, mainly because of name. His skill is higher here, and he should win a clear decision, but I don't know. This seems a little bit high, but I'm going to go Duffy. Mike, Duffy versus Alvarez.
Yeah, I mean, Duffy has obviously more experience and everything like that, but I mean, I don't trust him, not with that number, and I'm going to go with the underdog.
There you go. Grant Dawson, minus 230 versus Nad Narimani, plus 190. I kind of like Narimani. God, I'm just gonna go with Dawson. I just don't know enough to go there, but I do like what I've seen from Narimani, but I think Dawson probably is gonna take it here. Mike, Dawson versus Narimani.
Man, I think that Nad Narimani trains. I believe he trains up with TriStar, and he has a really good wrestling, and so I would have to lean with Nad Narimani just because he's showing me more determination.
You go big underdog if you like that one there. Yes, I realize it feels like the energy is slowing, and it is. It'll come back for the main card, I promise. Kadis Ibragimov, plus 160. Yes, the man who has lost at light heavyweight to Ed Herman in 2020. Sorry, I have to say that over. That's just so. It's so bad. It's so bad. Versus Roman Daldizi, some version of that is minus 185. I gotta go with Roman just strictly off Cadiz's last fight. Mike, I know you know more about Roman than I do, so I'll toss it to you for this one.
Yeah, Roman Daldizi, I mean, he's got some really good hands and some good ground game, so I think that he can easily win this fight and do whatever he wants to the kid. I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks him out or submits him.
Now we're to the main event. The excitement is back, at least for, like I said, 3 out of the 5. But it comes right back for the very, very first one. Alexandre Pantoja, he's a minus 200 favorite versus Askar Askarov. No, I said that one right because the name's the same thing, plus an Ov. He is a plus 170.
Killed it.
I know, killed that one. Me and Mike were talking beforehand. I really like Askar Askarov here at the plus 170. I think those odds are ridiculous. I really like Pantoja, but I do think this is the type of stylistic matchup that he had to deal with against Dustin Ortiz, someone who is willing and able to stifle his scrambling ability and actually take those type of grappling situations away from him. I think this should be a pick'em. So the plus 170 is fantastic odds, in my opinion. So we do have a bet on this one at plus 170. So that's 1 unit at the 170. Mike, break down this flyweight fight, which might be who will eventually fight the winner of this main event.
Yeah, man, Askar Askarov, he's super impressive. His gas tank is really good. His wrestling is the type of world-class wrestling that I love, and his gas tank is always there. He's going to be over there with there's going to be a lot of fans of his, and so I think that he's going to be able to do whatever. I think he's going to be able to stifle Pantoja's ground game that he so heavily relies on. And if he does that, then he has to be just a striker. And he's not just a striker, Pantoja. He's a world-class black belt. So I think Askar Askarov has everything and more to win this fight. So that's why we're confident throwing down that bet.
Almost forgot I was on mute. Next up, Ariana Lipski. Yes, her. She's a minus 130 favorite versus Luana Carolina, plus 110. Lean Lipski, pretty much just off UFC experience, but this is likely going to be a close fight, so I guess I'll pick Lipski, but if you want a little bit of dog money, Carolina's right there. But I do think Lipski's going to pull it off. Close decision, probably 29-28, as many of these female MMA fights happen to be, at least in the low levels. Mike, Lipsky, Carolina.
Oh man, if I was going off looks, obviously Lipsky wins this all day. I mean, her butt's good, everything looks good. So it's not. It's a fight, and Luana Carolina is a little bit more dirty in that sense, and so. Even though she's newer and has less experience, it's a women's MMA, and Lipsky hasn't shown me enough progression to bet on her ever, so I'd have to go with Carolina.
Next up, Mark Diakisi, -160 versus Rafael. Sorry, he's not Brazilian. Fiziez, +140. See, that's when you get the trickiness. You get the different pronunciations of the names just depending on country. But I had to double check. No, he is not Brazilian. So apologize for that, for offending anyone. There's actually another guy who trained in Kyrgyzstan, from Kyrgyzstan, just like the ladies 125 champion, and also trains at Phuket, Thailand, with a ton of people. Obviously, more famously, Peter Yan was just training there, but plenty of others. Tyron Woodley has finished up to camp there. A lot of guys have gone there. He is 7-1. Been impressed with him with his win over Alex White, but I still don't think that's quite to the level of experience of Mark Diakisi. Obviously, Mark Diakisi has proven himself against Fiziez's level of competition. I'm not going to say because he hasn't proven himself over the highest level of competition, because that's not where he is. His ceiling is much lower than that, but I do think he gets it here. Veteran savvy and just more experience, and when he's flowing, he can really put some strikes together. And if I recall correctly, he also has the reach advantage, so he'll be able to land at will. And so let me double check that. Although he went to college at the Kyrgyzstan Police Academy, he was born in Kazakhstan. So I don't want to make too many Eastern Bloc people mad at me. So I'm going to do my best to separate that the way it's supposed to be. Mike, your pick for Diakisi versus Fiziez.
Man, in a striking contest, Casey all day. But this is going to get hairy with the judges over there at Fight Island in Dubai. Fiziz's wrestling game is good enough to cause a little bit of fits, and DeCasey's Achilles heel is I guess a great wrestler. I wouldn't bet on DeCasey. I couldn't throw that money down on it. But DeCasey should win off OG experience. But don't be surprised if Aziz throws down a 3-round wrestling clinic.
Very possible. Very, very possible, especially with DeCasey's takedown defense. In the co-main event, this is actually a really, really good middleweight fight.
Let's go.
Yeah, Jack Hermanson is +100. Actually, these odds have tightened up since I was originally making these notes, but he's +100 versus Kelvin Gastelum, -120. I love Gastelum here. Obviously, Jack Hermanson's going to be a lot taller than him and probably a lot bigger than him. That's just the case of Gastelum fighting at middleweight. The guy who should be fighting at welterweight, if not lower. Honestly, he'd be a guy that 165 would probably be about perfect, even though it's not a weight class. I like Gastelum's boxing. I think he can box up Hermanson and has the wrestling to be able to protect himself from going down to any type of submission. And I don't know. I really like Gastelum here to the point that we have a bet on it. So that's 1.2 units at the -120 to win the 1 unit. Mike, this co-main event, Gastelum versus Hermanson.
Yeah, man, I can't wait for this fight. It is going to be absolute fireworks. Kelvin Gastelum has never disappointed me when he's thrown down, and Jack Hermanson the same. Jack Hermanson's only weakness to me is his striking isn't good enough to get to the upper echelon. Kelvin Gastelum,
those single shots.
Yeah,
it's all about those single shots.
You could tell he's just not a confident striker, Kelvin is a lot more confident. He's been in there with wars with Adesanya and people that, world-class strikers. So I think that Kelvin Gastelum has everything and anything for Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson relies heavily on a ground game and a guillotine choke that's never going to work on Kelvin Gastelum. It's a bad matchup for Hermanson. Kelvin Gastelum's wrestling is going to be able to stifle his takedowns. He's just going to be able to, what I think is load up combos and finish Jack. But we'll see. I think that Kelvin will win this easily, and that's why we're throwing down the bet.
In the main event. Now, this was a good fight for what it lasted in their
We love you, Joby.
We do. We absolutely do. Davison Figueiredo is a -200 favorite, mainly because there's a lot of hype on him, and he knocked out Joseph Benavidez the last time weird leanings into that, as we talked a little bit about when we were talking to Gustavo last week. Joseph Benavidez is plus 170. That's actually coming down. Originally, Figueiredo, when I was making this, was a much higher favorite, but things are starting to come down quite a bit. That first round, I had Joe B winning clearly in their first time out. I thought the scrambles were looking good. I thought his striking was looking good, and then it just ended in the second. And obviously, Figueiredo missed weight. So for the vacant title, couldn't take it. So they're doing the rematch. It's so hard here because obviously Figueiredo has the power, but in terms of skill, I think it was even when we first broke down this fight the last time out, was Figueiredo has the power, Benavidez has everything else, and he pretty much does. So
and the wife.
Yeah, absolutely. And better camp, and just a lot of stuff going on there. So we have no bet on this one currently, but man, I have to pick Joe B. Love Joe B. And I want a belt around his waist. So let's just give him a belt around his waist. Mike, the main event. Figueiredo, Benavidez, 2.
Yeah, man. I mean, last time they fought, I believe they had a clash of heads that was a little bit suspect that made Joe B wobble a little bit. He was looking good before that. But I don't know if that clash of heads was the biggest reason, but I'm glad that we get to see another rematch just to see if that was. Joe B has been a pioneer of the sport. He's been a great guy. Like Gustavo Lopez talked about last week, he's just a great person. He gives good energy. He helps others. He puts in the work all the time. So we're going to back our boy Joe B. I wouldn't put this as a bet, but I think Joe B deserves to win this fight. We're going to back him on this fight, and I hope he comes home with the belt so that he can retire.
Now, as a quick review, we got quite a bit to review because we've had quite a bit of fights that we have gone over. We actually have a lot of underdog heavy bets here, which is a sign of a good thing in my opinion. So reviewing the bets. First off, we have 1 unit at plus 120 on Cody Stamann. We have 1 unit at plus 110 for Ryan Benoit. We have 1 unit at plus 170 for Askar Askarov. And our only slight favorite that we have a bet on is 1.2 units at minus 120 for Kelvin Gastelum. Now, Mike, before we say goodbye to everyone for next week, do you have anything final to say to our people?
We can't appreciate you guys enough for following, watching, subscribing, liking, and listening. You guys are all the shit. We wouldn't be anything without you. Bob and I truly appreciate you, and just take care of your families through these troubled times. If you ever need a friend or any MMA advice, you always hit us up on Twitter, and make sure you go to MMAforMoney.com and get yourself a NASCAR package, because MMA for Money, he hit another NASCAR truck last weekend, and that's all he just keeps doing is just winning. So make sure you get yourself a NASCAR package.
Yes, absolutely. Go to the website, check out what Prime's got going on, and obviously we got MMA Gangster back, so be looking out for his props that should be coming out, whether it be for this fight card or the next one. He's been doing great. Yeah, his write-ups are also fantastic. If you want to jump into those, check out our previous shows, our current shows, our future shows, our YouTube, which is about to just blow straight up, because you'll get to look at Mike every single show, which we all know everyone's looking forward to. But you know what? We will be back next week to preview UFC on ESPN, Whitaker versus Till. I'm actually really hoping that's just a real awkward, random catch weight of like 190 or 195, just because they don't care, but we'll wait and see. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your platform of choice, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, Pocket Cast, RSS feed. Please subscribe to the YouTube. We're really trying to grow that, and these videos will start getting us there, including the snippets from the show. Like, comment, and share. Please leave a rating and review, like all that stuff. It does so much. You don't know how much it does. Please, please, please. And with that, let's roll.